Well, hi everyone, and welcome to this deep dive. In these deep dives, I take one aspect of my really offensive data and analytics strategy approach that I've outlined in a previous video series. And I take that one aspect and I drill into it into a bit more detail and to give you a bit more depth. So in this episode, I'm going to go and take a deeper look at data and analytics value management using the YOOI platform, which I've been working with for a while now. Just before we begin, let's just briefly remind ourselves of what I mean by a really offensive data and analytics strategy.
So a really offensive data and analytics strategy has three main components. First of all is that focus on the last mile, and that's really about taking the shift to what's called decision intelligence. Focusing on the decision that needs to be made and supporting and tracking that decision with your analytics assets. So if we look at the data and analytics value chain, here we can see the flow of value from raw data through to business outcomes. And you can get more detail on this from the first episode of my video series on how to build a really offensive data analytics strategy. But briefly, defensive data strategies focus on data management and governance, whereas offensive data strategies focus more on analytics and insight generation. What I mean by a really offensive data analytics strategy is one that you take to the next stage and incorporates the complete value chain. In other words, the outcomes from the data. To do this requires that you focus on what I call the last mile. The last mile in this instance is the process of informed decisioning and execution. And this means deciding how to take the insights and the intelligence, whether they be human or artificial, through a decisioning process that informs actions that will lead to valuable outcomes. A key attribute of the really offensive data and analytics strategy is that relentless focus on the decisions to be made and the outcomes required, manifested through business use cases. These determine the insights that are required, which in turn determine the data and transformation requirements. The second component is the development of value-based analytics products. What we're talking about here is the creation of artifacts, deliverables, software products, apps that are designed in a user-centric way to deliver distinct and discernible value to their users. So if we go back to our friend, the value chain, we can see the various artifacts generated along the way. Data sources are curated as data products are the foundation of analytics products, which deliver specific insights to support, augment, or automate specific decisions in business use cases that address the needs of the strategic priorities of the business. Then the third component is creating robust value management, delivery, and tracking processes around those products to ensure that the right products are being developed and delivered at the right time in line with the strategic needs of the business. And so when it comes to value management, the key decisions for business and data and analytics leaders are: what should I prioritize? How do I track delivery? How can I show value? And for that, there is a need for good processes, solid governance around those processes, and also a platform to support the complete data and analytics product lifecycle from inception through to adoption. And this is where YOOI comes in. YOOI not only manages the product lifecycle, but also importantly is able to connect all the various entities in the value chain together to give a complete lineage of how data is being used in the business and the value associated with it in both a strategic and a financial sense. So in this sense, YOOI is able to provide direct line of sight from the priorities of the business to the raw data it needs to support them. So YOOI as a platform enables data and analytics leaders to do two key things: to create a lineage through the data and analytics value chain from data sources to strategic business priorities, and then to manage the data management, delivery management, and value realization processes. So firstly, let's take a look at value lineage. So here I've opened up the YOOI portal, and I'm now going to take a look at the value lineage. So that's the
the connection between the various products and assets and the business value being generated. So in this visualization, you can see the connection between individual data assets over here on the right-hand side, and these strategic priorities, business priorities of the business over on the left-hand side. And in between the different use cases that are supporting those business priorities and the business metrics that are being used to judge the performance against those strategic priorities. And you can see there's a lot of relationships and connections between the business priorities, the use cases, and the individual assets. But what we can begin to do now is to look at individual business priorities and see how they're being supported by the use cases that are either in development or have already been delivered. So let's just say take this first one here, the growth of the customer base, and we can see by filtering on that particular business priority the business metrics that are used to understand the performance against that priority, but also importantly the use cases that are in development or in delivery or in deployment to support that business priority, and the individual data, analytical, and AI assets to support that. So there are a number of use cases being developed or in production to support that particular priority, and we can drill down to the individual data assets as well, which are categorized in various buckets here, and these are the individual data sources and data assets that are helping to support that particular business priority. And conversely, we can also understand at the individual data asset level how that particular data asset or data product is being used within the business. So here we can see that that particular data product, the consumer segments one, is supporting one particular use case, the AI-powered consumer care, but that use case is supporting a range of different business priorities, and therefore this particular use case is probably having a significant impact or will have a significant impact across the business. So this is a sort of a view that YOOI provides to data and analytics, but also to the business itself in terms of how data assets and data products and analytics products linked to use cases are actually supporting the business priorities and the business performance metrics. So there we saw how YOOI can give a complete line of sight along the value chain from raw data sources through to business outcomes. So next, let's take a look at how YOOI supports the management of those processes. So as mentioned earlier, effective product development requires rigorous processes and strong governance around those processes. And I've covered this in detail in part 6 of my series on building a really offensive data and analytics strategy. However, in a maturing product development environment, challenges can emerge around the end-to-end management and the ability to see the wood for the trees. The second key benefit of YOOI in developing a really offensive data and analytics capability is to provide a platform, or a cockpit if you like, to manage the portfolio of data and analytics products through the development lifecycle. So let's take a look at how it does that. Okay, so here I am back at my YOOI portal, and first thing I'm going to do is to click into the portfolio cockpit, and this is where I get a high-level overview of the various activities that are going on through the product development lifecycle. And in this particular instance, it's broken down into 3 stages: into the define stage, delivery, and then post-delivery monitoring. And you can see here at a very high level the amount of new ideas that have been coming in, the number of ideas and qualifications, so quite a few there, where in the business that demand is also coming from. So quite a lot of ideas coming in and need qualification from the marketing and operations side of the business. Within delivery, we can see the number of use cases that are in delivery, and then the number of use cases that are now in production and will shortly be finished. So that, say, is my sort of cockpit overview.
But what I'd like to do is just show you the sort of the underlying processes and going from left to right, beginning by looking at how you submit demand into the platform. So this is a very simple form at this stage. It's very high level, designed to just capture some sort of core information in terms of what the actual use case is about, and importantly, the challenges that it's looking to address and the expected value, albeit in a very subjective way at this stage. And rather than you watch me type, here's one I prepared earlier. So let's hit the submit button and go to the next stage. So the next stage is qualification. And there are a number of frameworks which are available, plus the ability to incorporate your own. In this case, we're just going to use the framework that comes with YOOI and start the process of qualification. So what we are doing here is collecting now enough information to be able to put the idea or potential use case into a prioritization process according to whichever framework you decide. So the process is again going through a number of questions, which then ultimately will assign a score based on whichever methodology that you choose to use. So once the use case has gone into qualification, it then becomes available for being managed through the product lifecycle. So let's have a look now at what that looks like in terms of the use cases themselves. So here we have a list of the various use cases, in this case categorized by the individual strategic business priorities, but there are different ways that you can look at this view of the data. There's a view which allows you to look at that in terms of the timeline, so you can see what's in play at this precise moment in time and what's coming up in the future, and also where each use case is within the development lifecycle, from an idea being submitted through to deployment and completion. So we look, for example, within our AI-powered customer care use case, we can see that that's currently in a qualification stage, and we can begin to then also look into that in a little bit more detail. Importantly here as well, you can begin to understand what the data asset requirements are for that. So this is that linkage that we looked at earlier between the use case and the underlying data assets and data products that are going to be required to support that use case. And that's further detailed when we get into looking at the individual data domains. So this is again another view onto the value chain from data sources and data products through to strategic business priorities and outcomes. So a list of all the various data products, and also we can look at specifically AI products as well, because they have a different perspective in terms of the kind of information that you might want to understand about the state and the quality of those particular data products. So let's finally take a look at how aspects of data management and data governance also incorporate into the platform in this sort of cockpit overview. So let's just click into the data products and have a look at this data product here called affiliation. And here you get to see some of the metadata around that particular data set. We can begin to see what kind of data product it is, the data domain that it belongs to, how that links into the various use cases, and also other aspects in terms of traditional data governance type of metrics and data quality metrics, using data quality metrics such as completeness and accuracy, validity, and so forth. So this gives you a sense then of the robustness and the trustworthiness of the underlying data assets that are supporting those particular use cases. So there we have it in terms of the end-to-end value management of the data and analytics product lifecycle. From capturing and qualifying demand to managing use cases through the delivery process to understanding and being able to demonstrate value against strategic business priorities.
So I hope you found that deep dive useful and got a better understanding of how YOOI can help you create that connectivity and lineage along the value chain from data through to products and ultimately business outcomes. And also as well as helping you to manage and communicate the value management and realization processes. If you'd like to understand how a combination of applied insights and YOOI could potentially turbocharge your transformation journey, then please do get in touch. Details to follow. Bye for now.